folks. It's Monday, May 13th. My voice is getting back to normal. So, there is the big news in politics today is these New York Times Siena College polls that showed Donald Trump leading, I think, in 6 out of the 7 swing states that they tested. But I actually don't want to talk about that today. I want to talk about something else that is specifically not poll related. So, over the weekend, I talked to a guy named Allan Lichtman. He is a professor at American University, and he's developed this model that he's used over many years to try to predict who will win presidential elections. So he basically has 13 statements, okay? If 8 or more of these statements are true, the incumbent party wins. If 8 or less of these statements are true, the challenger party wins. It's that simple. So you say, well, Chris, what are the statements? I'm not going to read all of them. I will link to them here, but I'll give you a few. Number 2 is contest. There is no serious contest for the incumbent party nomination. That is true for Biden. Number 6, long-term economy. Real per capita economic growth during the term equals or exceeds mean growth during the previous 2 terms. Number 9, scandal. The incumbent administration is untainted by a major scandal. Number 12, incumbent charisma. The incumbent party candidate is charismatic or a national hero. And number 13, challenger charisma. The challenging party candidate is not charismatic or a national hero. Okay, so you say, who the hell is Allan Lichtman? I get it. But here's the thing. In 9 of the last 10 presidential elections, that little thing that I said, the 13 keys, the Lichtman model, has accurately predicted the winner of the presidential election. That includes, I'll note, 2016, when no one, this guy included, thought Donald Trump was going to win. Allan Lichtman did, and I know it because I talked to Allan Lichtman. I was at the Washington Post at the time. I talked to Allan Lichtman about it because he was one of the only people out there saying it. Now, how did he develop this? Fascinating. So, in the early 1980s, he's working in California with a guy who is a earthquake specialist. Yes, an earthquake specialist. And essentially what they decide is rather than focus on polling and that sort of stuff, they're going to focus on basically stability or earthquake as it relates to politics. Stability being the incumbent wins, earthquake being the challenger wins. And they came up with these criteria based on a historical analysis of sort of what matters in an election. They came up with these 13 criteria. 9 of the last 10 elections, it's been right. You say, well, what election wasn't it right? 2000. But remember, in the 2000 election, so Lichtman predicted that Al Gore would beat George W. Bush. But in that election, Al Gore did, in fact, win the popular vote. And many Democrats say actually won the election in Florida. But the Supreme Court stepped in, stopped the counting, and George W. Bush was president. So put an asterisk by that one. But that's the only one that Allan Lichtman has missed in the last 40 years. So you might wonder, what does Allan Lichtman think is going to happen in this election? Well, he thinks Joe Biden is going to win. That is right. So even though we have polling today that shows that Donald Trump is ahead, and even though that there's been polling for months that suggests Donald Trump is ahead in these key swing states, Allan Lichtman believes Joe Biden, not because of polling, but because of economics, because of the incumbency, because of not scandal, et cetera, these 13 keys, there are enough things there that Joe Biden is going to be reelected. Now, I will say Lichtman won't make a final prediction, right? His official prediction until later this summer. So take it with a grain of salt. But I do think it is worth going over Lichtman's keys and how he gets there because it's so counterintuitive to the way that we think about how elections are run. We focus so much time on the candidates and so much time on the polling. And Lichtman says polling is a snapshot in time, which I've said before. It's a snapshot in time. We pay too much attention to it. We pay too much attention to the ups and downs of every news cycle. The reality is that there are these underpinnings, right? These undercurrents that really matter in an election. And that's what we have to focus on. And the political press does a very poor job of doing that. Again, take it or leave it, but the guy's been right 9 out of the last 10 elections. That's pretty damn good. If I had predicted the last 9 out of the 10 elections, I'd probably be in Vegas right now. So take a look. I will link both to Allan Lichtman's keys and the interview I did with him that ran on my Substack that I think is very much checking out. He goes a little bit more into detail, but just consider it. Put it in your mind. Put a link to his predictions so that you can come back when he makes his final one, because I do think he's a very interesting guy who's been right a lot more than he's been wrong about this stuff. And I think it provides an interesting and different perspective than you're probably getting every day in the news media. All right, check that out. And as always, like this video, subscribe to this channel, tell 5 friends. All right, take care. See you tomorrow.